All right. Hey, everybody who is just joining in. Welcome to our webinar here today, Growth Through Retention. I'm Cody at Customer.io, and I'm on the marketing team here. If you haven't heard of Customer.io before, we're a cross-channel customer engagement platform. So basically, you bring all of your engagement data in, the behaviors that your customers are taking in your app, the attributes that define them, and then you as the marketer or product manager or whoever owns this part of your engagement strategy is able to build these workflows that adapt and react based on all of those different behavior points that you're bringing into the platform. It's all based on your data model and your behavior. So it's really easy to come in here and build campaigns that are actually aligned to the goals that your company has. So if you haven't heard of us before, we work with a lot of different companies in different industries. Today, I'm excited that we are going to be talking to Jessie at Pawp. Just to give a little quick intro to Jessie, she's a self-proclaimed email geek. She also helped triple conversion rates in her first 3 months at Pawp, which I want to hear about in just a second. And today we're going to be talking all things life cycle and retention marketing. Jessie, thanks for joining us. To start things off, could you give us kind of a quick minute elevator pitch on what Pawp is and what products and services you offer?
Yeah, so Pawp is an online vet clinic, and we have licensed vets available 24/7, and you can chat with them or video call, and we're just there whenever, and it's subscription based, and yeah, that's what we've got.
Yeah, I think thanks for that quick overview. I think that's just to set the stage here on what your product does. And I think it's cool that Pawp is kind of a disruptor in this space that historically hasn't had this kind of digital experience. So yeah, really excited for what y'all are doing and really excited to get into more engagement scenarios here. Before we jump into lifecycle stuff, I know you love email as a channel as well, so want to ask you a lot of questions there. Just to set a quick agenda, the golden question today as we lead into this, and I think this is super important, especially as we're going through time of inflation, and obviously retention becomes more of a priority there. But golden question today is, how do you provide value and retain your customers long term? So for the audience, what we're going to do is we'll hear how and why Pawp is shifting their focus towards retention here more in 2022. Next up, we're going to get tactical. So we're going to throw some common customer lifecycle scenarios that maybe your business has also faced. We're going to throw those at Jessie and hear her thoughts on the fly as we go. And then we'll round things out with a little more tactical section on tool tips, how Jessie actually uses Customer.io to do some of the things that we talk about today. Quick reminder again, if you've just joined us, in the bottom right, there's polls, questions. You can also throw things in the chat if you want us to talk about them as we go, or you can always show us some love by clicking that little react button in the bottom if you just want to send some emojis on something that you either are resonating with or want to hear more about. All right, so Jessie, again, the event is all around retention. Before we get to that, we got to get a little bit of context. I know we mentioned in your bio that you're able to triple your onboarding email conversion rates. I'm sure the audience would love to also do that. First off, how do you count a conversion in that process? And then what did you do to accomplish that?
Yeah, so it wasn't the onboarding, it was actually like our conversion rate for new customers
Okay.
I did in the first 3 months.
Even better.
Even better. So I came in, and Pawp is a startup, and we had just gotten our Series A when I joined Pawp. And I took over email, and I built out our retargeting. Before it was like 3 or 4 messages over, I think, 5 days, and then nothing, and maybe like a newsletter every once in a while. And so I dug more into sending out up to 27 emails over 50 days. And it was based off of their interaction with the email or the lack of it, and then where they were as far as like a pet parent. So that was just really important. And then as Pawp has been progressing and as the economy has been degressing, I guess, it's been really important to keep our members. We're subscription based, so getting people to sign up is great, but they need to stay. And a big part of that is using our product. And I realized that I was kind of not treating our customers the right way, where I was, constantly messaging them, sending like articles that are adding value to get them to convert, and then sending them 5 emails in a welcome series and some newsletters. And it'd be more of a secondary newsletter after the leads newsletter. So we kind of switched around and created a 13-part onboarding email series, and are still building out other campaigns that encourage people to use Pawp. And then now when I write my newsletters, I do customer first newsletters, and then I will rework that newsletter for our leads. But I think overall, just for our leads as well, like it doesn't feel like a sales pitch. It's just real content that vets have written or helped us write on our blog, and things like big questions that we're getting from our customers. So
yeah, I hear you talk through that too. And we frequently hear, or I hear a lot of talking to marketers who say, how do I do personalization in a way that doesn't feel, quote, creepy, is how it's framed a lot of times, but also is like very much like I'm not forgetting the value that the customers, I'm forgetting my own conversion rate for a quick second and thinking about the customer's value first. So I love hearing you kind of talk through that. When you were rebuilding some of those things, what like specifically, or like when you were building those emails, was it personalization in the actual email that helped you think, triple that conversion rate? Or do you think it was just putting people down different campaigns completely based on different criteria? Or what would you say is kind of like the thing if you had to narrow it down?
Gosh, I think really the thing is just better quality content, because it went from, talking about like our 3 points of who we are, with the telehealth and emergency, and just being here 24/7, and then digging like out like what that actually means. Like, what does 24/7 health mean? And then also making it timely. So last year on Labor Day, we sent out an email, I think on Saturday, that just was like, hey, we're here all weekend, because a lot of vets are closed on Labor Day. And emergency clinics will be backed up because of that, because you're not just going there for like life-threatening, you might be going there for smaller things. And so that was just really successful to be like, hey, we're here, you can ask us. And then we give them questions that are like related to that. So like more around barbecues at that time. Like, did my dog eat like a hamburger bun? Are they going to be okay? Like, grapes are extremely toxic to dogs. Like, one grape can be very bad for a dog. So just having things like that to kind of spur why they should use Pawp.
And do people always come in the same way? Or I know you also have a trial. Talk to me about kind of during this like phase of acquisition, like what did you learn about your different customer groups and maybe the needs that they had coming in, and what did that kind of teach you?
Yeah, the first our two main groups when I started were our like homepage, general, overall, like excited about Pawp, usually more of someone who's Googled something and then found us because of our blog having the information about us, or maybe clicked on our Instagram and then come to our homepage. And then the other one was our emergency funnel, where people are looking for emergency protection, or have a distressed animal. And those were the 2 main funnels. And so, the one that was like more homepage, that's where we were talking more about like using Pawp as telehealth, and, like testimonials about using the telehealth and how it helped them. And then like our emergency funnel has FAQs about how the emergency fund works. Like, that's like the second email, which performs really well because that's a big question. And then testimonials about people using the emergency fund and the process of that.
Cool. And it sounds like, I guess, transitioning this conversation a little bit more back towards the retention now as we get going. But it sounds like you've acquired this initial batch of customers. You've learned a little bit about these different funnels of folks coming in from the webpage versus the emergency fund. Okay, so now 2022, why has your focus switched over to retention?
I think it's just natural, as we grew like exponentially on our user base, our data team saw trends of people leaving. Because I mean, subscriptions, people leave. We just know that as a fact, but like, what is that churn rate? And so it was like really helpful when one of my data guys like came in and was like, hey, let's tackle churn rate. And then he figured out like source and like add all of these different things for me. And then I was like, a big one that stood out was just like people who use Pawp stay with Pawp. And that's kind of every subscription. Like, I have lots of subscriptions personally, and I've also canceled a lot because I didn't use them. So um, that's kind of what we've been focusing on as far as like life cycle marketing is um, creating that welcome series based off of the actions that are going to add value, and then creating those other campaigns or triggered emails based off of their interaction with Pawp.
Got it. So I think this actually transitions perfectly into, I'm going to throw the first scenario at you of our life cycle scenarios that we're going to scatter in throughout today. But let's say a customer has created a Pawp account. What are you trying to get them to do first to help them find that initial value?
Yeah, very first thing is having them start a call with our Pawp vets. We tell them what to talk about if they want. So it's to develop like a care plan, which is this custom care plan that the vet will build after they're done with the call based on where their pet is as far as health goes or activity or behavior or anything like that. And it gives them articles or products to buy or just notes, and it's all there. And we send off a transactional email as soon as that's ready, and it's usually like 5 minutes, I think. And then it has the basics of the overview, and then they can click on it and see even more. So and then we send them reminders to follow up if there's a follow-up date.
And if folks aren't doing those things, that's where they're getting something different, or they're getting, you want to get them to those key milestones before moving them to other things or suggesting other deeper types of product adoption. Or how are you like holding people back versus moving them forward in these journeys?
Definitely, like another big one is downloading the app. So that's why we're creating it's still in the welcome series, but we're creating our own app adoption campaign as well. That's going to check, have they downloaded the app, and then do a split from there of, sending them either a text message if we have their phone number or an email, telling them to download the app. But if they have downloaded the app, sending them a push notification to start a call, and sending them another one to check out care plans, or check out an article based on dog or cat. So that's really important, because having an app on your phone and being able to contact people that way, push notifications, to me at least, are way less annoying than text messages. So it's nice to have that in your pocket.
Yeah, I'm curious to the audience. Feel free to jump in as we chat on this too, as far as channels, but would love to hear what channels audience members y'all are using or wanting to use more of as we chat more about this. Jesse, what do you find? I really like the comments there about push notifications. Have you been doing any testing around different channels at different stages of the life cycle? And is there a channel that's more associated with early life cycle versus later, or is it per customer?
So definitely emails just dominant, especially because we don't get people's emails when they're just, or we don't get their phone numbers when they're just, filling out a form to find out if they want Pawp for the retargeting campaigns. Some of them we might get it because you have the option to, but it's less prompted than when we onboard people. So definitely email and just doing all that testing. And then I've just started using push, but I did a little testing on 4th of July, and it was nice because I learned that people just want to hear about our vets rather than doing something cute. And sometimes sometimes it's fun to do something cute in an email or in a push notification, but when you're talking about like we're here, which was another thing, like it's every holiday we want to just tell people we're here. You don't have to wait for your vet. Don't go to the parking lot. Like don't stay up all night waiting to know if your pet's going to be okay. And so we just want to reiterate that, and having that push notification was great. And then we also sent an email.
When you say that people want to hear about your vets instead of something cute, what told you that? Was it click-through rates or open rates, or was it a conversion rate you were tracking based on how that message drove an action?
So it was click rate or open rates, I think is how it's measured for push. But it's like people like clicking and opening and ending up in the app. And we did also like see more people starting calls. Like I did an event-based conversion, which I really like. New feature at Customer IO, and it was like if they had a call or a chat with a vet within 24 hours of opening that push notification, then I counted that as a conversion. So yeah, that's the easiest way for me to track things.
Yeah. And thanks for the shout out on the event-based conversions. That's a cool one because you're aligning each campaign with actually what action you want them to take versus just like, an open and a click are great, but did they actually do the thing? I also wanted to say that that's seems like something we're always thinking about is how do we stay in tune with what the customer is wanting during like seasonal type things. And I know my dog during 4th of July does not like fireworks, and there's sometimes adverse reactions based on stress, like physiologically. So I'm also, as you're saying that, like that's really cool to hear that you're putting those things out there and you're putting value out there during moments where you know that your customer might really need them.
Yeah,
especially.
yeah. And that was the email that we actually sent, was tips for managing stress for 4th of July with dogs or cats. So it's definitely, I think 4th of July is the most dangerous holiday for pets, for running away and just and eating wrong things. So it's a scary holiday.
Yeah, being accessible during that time. Okay, let's jump in. I want to get more like middle life cycle. So talking about deeper adoption, getting more, as some folks call it, expansion, getting people deeper and deeper into the value of the subscription. So this next scenario, let's say that a customer has been a member for a month. Maybe they visited with a vet once and maybe done so with just one pet so far. Maybe they have multiple, but they've just got one on there. What's kind of your approach to guiding them towards deeper adoption during kind of this? They're onboarded, but now here's the middle phase.
Yeah. So definitely first month they've had a visit. That's great. But the next thing would be, reminding them, which is in the welcome series, reminding them to check off their checklist, which is like adding up to 6 pets for free on your account, checking out the pharmacy because everything's at a discount, but it's only for our members, and making sure that they've downloaded the app because that's a big one, and just that's like the big things. We also send them like article options based on cat or dog. And yeah, just getting them to sign in and check out their care plan too is important.
We talked briefly right before this about those event conversions or setting a goal, conversion goal. How are you, I guess, to get them to do those type of things, like download the mobile app or schedule more with the vet? Are you building campaigns around each one of those specifically, or tactically, what does that look like on your end?
So because I don't want to kick people out of a campaign with a conversion goal of an event, I'm just tracking that with my own segments on the side, and within like a kind of repeated campaign like that. So with the welcome series, it goes up to 90 days of checklists and everything. And I'm sure I'll just keep on adding more to that, because why not? And then getting them through that. And then for the like app adoption, everyone's dumping into that. And then it's just going to be continuous of like, did they use it? And then I love the wait steps based on events. So that's why I use a lot, even just in my emails, is like, did they open it? If they did, then skip this step. If they didn't, send them this email. And then did they receive that second email, then they wait 2 days. Otherwise, the people who didn't don't wait for 4 days. So doing different wait periods based on their status within the campaign is key.
Mm-hmm. I've heard folks use the term micro conversions for what you're describing as kind of having these mini points throughout maybe an overall like you're saying, a 90-day complete onboarding journey, but there's these little points to get people to. Cool to hear how you're using the wait until feature to kind of hold people at specific points. I'm curious too, is in this part of the journey, let's say they have downloaded the mobile app or something, going back to channels, if they have downloaded the mobile app, do you prioritize more like push? Or is that an indicator that guides you that direction, or not?
It would be a branch of like sending them push. And then if they don't have push, send them this email. And then if they didn't click on the push, I would just send them the email that they didn't get before, because maybe they have notifications blocked, or, my notification center is horrible. I have like 150 notifications at all times. And I just see a few of them, and then the rest of them get cleared out like once a month. So just keeping a channel open, and then also text messaging. But I like to keep it under like 6 per month for SMS, especially because like it might be an account-based notification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard lots of marketers talk about SMS as the one that they tiptoe a little bit more about, because it is a bit more of an intimate dive right into somebody's personal SMS inbox. So that's
it's key golden rule, I'd say, because there's some companies where I'm like, you're doing it right. Like, thank you for letting me know that my subscription is about to charge me. If I don't skip, that's great. But then other ones, it's like I get a text message every 3 days about a new offer. And I don't like that.
Yeah. I the way you said it is perfect. Like, when it's done right, like you know, as the consumer, oh, that was a value add SMS right there, versus just something that's filling up the inbox. I want to hear about upgrades, this topic. So if you're in the audience, folks, you might have different plans or different levels of complexity in how your plans are tiered. Jesse, I know you have a little bit of like the trial and then the main package. How do you upgrade folks who maybe come in as more of a trial status member to a full-on subscriber?
Yeah. So we just launched that last week, actually, was an upsell of like adding the emergency fund to your base plan. So people who come in through the trial, they're usually coming in to talk to a vet immediately, like just the way that we've set up the website. So they'll probably be Googling like talk to a vet now. And then they use the trial, they talk to a vet immediately, and then we email them 4 times, reminding them that's gonna charge them. And then if they don't cancel, then they get their free trial converted to a membership. And then I wait 1 day until they've converted, and then I put them into this emergency upsell campaign. And it focuses on, okay, you're already prepared. You have the vet right now, part of Pawp, but you can be more prepared because that vet call might be an emergency. And then doing the emergency FAQ and engaging them kind of like my other retargeting campaigns. I just treat it like that. So, and they're still getting the welcome series inside of that as well.
I know you might have mentioned this briefly before too, but I know that you said that before this, that people can have up to 6 pets on the same plan with the same price point. So whether you have 1 pet, added to your account, or 6, like, you're paying the same. Obviously, it seems like there's a ton more value if you have all of your pets on there, because then your price you're paying spread out across my 5 dogs versus my 1. Is that another point that you're looking at as far as like getting people deeper into the product? Is how many pets they're using, or how do you use that data point?
Haven't yet, honestly, but that's an amazing idea. Yeah, so right now it's just, you know, I usually do like, do they have a dog, cat, or multi-pet households? And then content based on that. But that's a really good idea, Cody.
I'm thinking of subscription services I use, and yeah, just thinking about which ones I'm personally, you know, least likely to cancel because I'm getting a ton of value.
Mhm.
I've currently got Stranger Things and a few other shows going on Netflix, so I'm very much not going to cancel those because I have
Mhm.
vested interest in multiple different, you know, avenues of value in that platform. So I'm just thinking, man, if I had, I don't have 5 dogs, but if I did,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
would
just
definitely keep me in. So always brainstorming different data points
yep.
too. Okay, let's switch over to our final scenario to throw at you. This is more late life cycle. So talking retention, churn, this kind of phase. Obviously, how do we prevent churn? So let's say a customer has been with Pawp for 5 or 6 months, maybe talked to a vet for a few months pretty consistently, ordering prescriptions during that time pretty consistently. This last couple months, they haven't logged in or interacted with a vet. Are you segmenting that customer and calling them maybe a churn risk, or like how are you kind of capturing these folks who are in danger of falling out?
Yeah, I would definitely dump them into like a nurture campaign, and try to get them to convert into our like high engager group, that I have just as a segment in customer IO. So definitely reminding them, about our care plan and how that works, or if they haven't used it yet, because that's only 2 months old at this point. And then checking to see if they have the app. If they don't, they're gonna keep on repeating in the app adoption campaign, um, and just sending them relevant things. So kind of just based off of the dog and cat, and now multi-pet. So
Yeah.
yeah.
How do you run tests either at this phase of the life cycle, or if it's, you know, you do more of your testing in the middle or earlier stages, but just in general, like what types of things are you testing? And can you give us an example of a test that you ran and what the result was?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I've just been testing consistently is plain text versus designed emails.
Mm,
And it's, from what I'm discovering, it's like plain text can be very powerful, especially if it's a, um, timely thing, or it needs to have more of a like laid back feel. So, you know, I made a template that looks like a Gmail send, and it just has our unsubscribe at the bottom with the address to be compliant. But you know, I have it come from like Pop support team or something, or Pop notifications, and just like being able to put in like their first name in the email, and then putting their pets' names, like, and adding in, those personalizing details is powerful. It's also something that Google, like Gmail, prioritizes. It can end up in your primary rather than your actual like promotions. But then like the design emails, it's, they do work, like especially for like our FAQs, because you break up information. And I think just overall, like a lot of information is better in a designed email rather than plain text, because you're just trying to like connect with them and get them to do one thing. And you might only have like one highlighted, you know, hyperlink text. And same with like subject lines. For a while, I was testing like putting pet name versus like the customer name, and putting the customer and pet name is what works best. So yeah.
it's amazing how like sometimes less design is actually more when it comes to the engagement, at just different scenarios. But yeah, like you're saying, there's only one way to find out, and it's test it out, see what works. I'm curious too, audience, we haven't heard much from y'all, but at this point too, if you have any thoughts around how to determine a winner of your test, would love to hear from you in the chat. If there's certain things that point out a winner of an engagement test, whether it's click rate, open rate, is it conversion rate? chime in if anybody has anything. Jesse, I also want to ask you that as a follow-up question. When you're running those tests, what is it that says, hey, a plain text email performs better than a designed one? Is it purely just open rate, or is it deeper, like we've discussed earlier, like into, do they actually convert and do the thing?
So
which wins the test?
It's really like, what are we trying to test? So like, it's like, is a plain text probably getting seen more versus a design one? That's going to be more of like, am I seeing a large difference in open rates? Because as we know, iOS 15 kind of messed up open rates. So I usually, like, if it's like a 5 to 10% difference, I'll just be like, that might just be iOS 15 messing up that segment. But if there's like sometimes like a 20% difference in open rates, with like the plain text versus the designed, or like a friendly from can be really powerful too, then it's probably going in the primary inbox. And then if we're more of testing just subject line, open rate is a nice indicator, but really click rate is something that is really important. Like, yes, conversion, but if they're clicking on the links that I want them to click on, then I know that like I'm doing my job on the email, and then maybe I need to figure out what the disconnect is on the landing page. And then a conversion rate that's higher is always great. But sometimes the conversion rate, just because it's so far down that funnel, isn't as conclusive as like a click rate would be. And like a click to open rate is something I really like.
Got it. So sometimes it's just, can I get them to the page that I want them to, even if they don't take the action yet? I'm still happy with them getting there, consuming it, digesting it. Maybe later they'll come back and do something.
Yes. Yeah, that was one thing also when I started, was just, I realized sending people directly to like the warm checkout was jarring for them. And so I was actually sending them back to the page that they had filled out their information on. And a lot of conversions were taking like 30 minutes before they would actually convert, because it is such like a personal decision of how you're going to protect and care for your pet. And there's so many different options out there. And, you know, just being able to read and understand all of the differences, because we are a pretty low priced option, especially compared to like other programs or like insurance, which we're not, but like we have the emergency fund and it just works differently. And so when people understand it, it's great value, but they have to read about it. And so that's what I try to get them with on the retention or the retargeting and retention, but they're still going to take a while to read something.
I think as you're talking through that, for folks in the audience, great takeaway right there. Even if you're not in, you know, pet healthcare industry, like listening to you, Jesse, talk through that of like that's jarring to the customer, maybe to make that ask so abruptly. And because a pet is a part of their family and it's their pet's health, which is such an important, intimate thing. I think that probably applies across, you know, finance is talking about people's money, education is talking about people's like maybe career growth or path, or just education in general. So regardless of industry, I think the takeaway from what you just said, Jesse, there for folks in the audience is like really knowing your customer and knowing what their buying decision is actually like, and if it is a long one, if it is a lot of consideration steps, like providing value at each point rather than making asks too early or prompting them forward. So
I'm assuming that they have lots of tabs open when they're looking at us. Like they're probably, you know, looking up reviews, which I always do, and just other companies. That's what I would do. So
shopping around, making the best decision. Yep. Cool. Well, Jesse, thanks for talking through all those different life cycle steps. We're going to jump over to a tool tip to get a little bit more tactical here with some of the stuff. But first off, I appreciate you letting us throw these different scenarios at you on the fly and hear your responses. It's been super valuable. Before we actually had this webinar, when we were doing our little rehearsal, you had a great quote that you said that I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here. You said that great lifecycle marketing is impossible if you don't have timely and relevant data. And I think a key part to this that you said was, and alignment across teams. So do you have the data in the platforms that you need to be able to, as a marketer, act on it? And then also, are you all working in sync with different teams? So I think as we jump into your tool tip today, I know you've talked about the various teams at Pawp that contribute in different ways to how you, as a marketer are able to actually use Customer IO to build out these lifecycle campaigns. For your tooltip, walk us kind of through how each team interacts with your work.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can start with you too, just to kind of like set the stage.
Yeah. I mean, for me, just like working with everyone, the best thing is just knowing what's going on, and reading through like release stacks, or staying up to date on the homepage, like what language is changing, and then just listening to my support team. Honestly, like they've changed a lot of things recently for me, just because I'm hearing what the customers need. So yeah.
Kind of iterating on those things. I think the next team you mentioned was the data team.
Yep.
How do you interact with them, or what do they do with you inside of Customer IO?
Yeah, they're kind of like my mini manager, I'd say. So they're telling me like what's working and what's not, as far as like the full like experience and value of the customer, and then they're also driving the business as well, and so understanding these like changes or updates to our company, from their side of things, and then just them sending the data in like the timely and relevant manner. And data can be really like expensive, I guess, as a load. Like it takes a lot of time, and so there's some things that we've worked on and like what needs to be prioritized for me of data, and then like the other things that I can wait a few hours for. Maybe it's like adding a pet, or just like viewing their care plan and actually buying the product or something, like rather than someone converting. That's like so important, or someone like coming in and adding their emergency fund. So just working on what is possible. It's really important.
The screenshot that's on here for folks watching is just completely example data, not actual data, but it just shows a view of the segmentation builder in Customer IO, where you can kind of stack these different, like Jesse's talking about, if they are a customer, if they're not, if they're, have performed this event or not, if they've downloaded the app or not. So kind of able to grab those. Jesse, like when you're building out segments like this and you don't have a piece of data, what's the workflow like? Is it you bring that to the data team and get them to send that in, and then you're off and rolling again, or kind of how does that work?
Usually what I do is I just kind of like try to make it in the segment thing, and then look at people who are close or something, and then look at all of their attributes, because we have like hundreds of attributes and events within Customer IO, and like seeing what they've done and seeing if the data team has already figured it out. Because a great thing in Customer IO as well is like you can go to that next level of like a sub attribute. And so like one thing I didn't understand which plan people had, and it was because it was like a sub attribute of an attribute of an event. And like that was important for like our data engineering to like keep everything buttoned up in one place. But it wasn't obvious to me because I just see event converted. So getting that, and then once I find out that something isn't there, I'll just go to my team, and like the best way is just explaining what I want the customer to do and how I want that information. Like, how do I get that information? And then they can figure out the best way to do it.
I love that. Starting with the end goal and then working it backwards with the data. Okay, flipping over to we have the data side now. We'll flip more over to the creative side. So how does the design and content team kind of work with you and utilize the platform?
Yeah, so our design team, I work super closely with especially our brand designer, but also like our head of content, and our head of design or creative. And it's just like been very important to get on brand with Pawp, because like that's kind of what happens when you're a startup is like I have a logo, so I'm just going to put that logo on there, and then I don't really know like the right font, or those things that I don't notice, but they do. And so I'll usually like put in a design ticket, and have the copy in there, and maybe I'll send an example of an email that I've liked from someone else, and then they turn something around within a few days and we go over it. And then I build in customer IO and then I send it off to actually email on Acid first. And then I send it to my designer to make sure that everything looks good.
So you're building out the advanced logic that says, if they have the mobile app, do this, if they don't, do this, but then what do we fill in the inside of the content with is that's where the content team comes in.
Yeah. And the content of like that kind of possible disconnect between like my email and what the page is telling them to do. So.
Love it. Okay. Engineering team is actually the second to last one we have on here. What do they do with you in as far as customer IO and what you're doing lifecycle marketing wise?
Yeah. So the biggest thing has been our transactionals. It's been really helpful to get a lot of back-end support. I feel like I work with them probably like 30% of my week now is just figuring out how to make our transactional messages more relevant for the customers, because it kind of goes to the next slide of like, if it's not relevant for the customer and if we're not sending like receipts or explanations within our transactionals, people are just going to call the support team. And I don't blame them. It's just, like there is so much work on the back end of getting that information in a format that is readable to a member versus like what a vet might click or write because they have more of a medical background.
I think as you're saying that too, folks, if you see on the screenshot on the far left there, it's campaigns, broadcasts, and transactional. Jesse mentioned the engineering team sending some of those more transactional kind of type messages. Another thing, the way we kicked off this little tooltip was talking about alignment across teams. Jesse, I frequently hear folks talking about how product teams may be sending out the push notifications, like marketing's owning email, and then engineering's owning, transactional, but they're all in different platforms. So you look at your customer's inbox and they accidentally got 5 messages in the same day versus having them in one place. There's definitely value to saving the customer's inbox, making sure that everything's coming from one place. So just as you were saying that.
Yep. And there have been like things that we've discovered along the way very much around that. Like I found out that we were sending SMS about like their bill gonna go through like at midnight. And so it was just like, okay, let's change this to be a decent like time frame for our members. So things like that, because I don't see like SMS transactionals on my end.
Got it. I know we're almost at time. So I think, Jesse, you talked a little bit. The one slide we'll skip here really quick was talking about your customer support team. I think you talked about them a little bit at the start, how giving that constant feedback to help you make your messages better. Always love our customer support teams. But for the sake of time, want to just wrap up here. And then we will stay on for a little bit of Q&A. So if anybody who doesn't have a hard stop here as we hit the 45-minute mark, please stay on and we'd be happy to answer some questions. But Jesse, really appreciate having you on. Before we get to Q&A, we just want to say to everybody in the audience, we got to have our quick Oprah moment here. We're sending everybody a retention recipes guide. So if you are inspired by stuff you've heard on this call and want to kind of take some tactical next steps to putting some of that strategy in play, we're going to send you all that guide in the email that we'll trigger here right as we finish the event. If anything in here has sparked enough interest that you want to see how customer IO could work for your business, or actually see some of these campaigns mocked up by somebody on our team for your business, a demo is a great next step, as you'll kind of get to see inside the platform, inside the segmentation builder, and all those things. So if you are evaluating, that's a great next step. If you're not evaluating platforms really right now, totally fine. Just say, show me your top 3 in the comment section of the demo request. And we'd be happy to just kind of give you a gist of what the top 3 campaigns look like for your specific industry. So a great way wherever you are kind of in your evaluation process.
Yeah, I will say, like, I was really excited when I joined Pawp because customer IO was the ESP. So I've been looking at them at my other job and switched over here, and it's been great.
Love to hear it. Yeah, and I think as we've kind of shown a couple of times, the visual workflow builder pops up, and it's kind of like a great visual way to build campaigns. So yeah, I've always found that those demos are really great as far as just seeing it in action. Like it's one thing to see a static image, but show me actually how you're dragging and dropping stuff in there.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's open it up to Q&A. I know we're a little over time, so any folks that don't have a hard stop, we'd love to hear any questions you have as we round things out. So go ahead there in the bottom right. You can use the questions tab or the chat tab if there's anything that we haven't covered yet. We'll give it just a minute here for folks to chat anything. Actually, as people, if anyone else has anything to ask, Elijah posted a question here. When you're oh wait, that's our A/B testing question. Okay, here's the one. It says, what's a must-have customer data point for lifecycle marketers? Jesse, is there any data points that you like couldn't live without when you're building out these journeys?
I think it's just your most value added event. Like it's like for us, just using Pawp, like have they started and completed a vet call. So whatever like is the best thing about your product that keeps people engaged and your data team has told you, that's it. So yeah.
Love that. My follow-up question is, we sometimes ask this, the desert island style question, but if you're on a desert island of customer engagement, you could only take one campaign building action with you, like an email or a wait until or a branch or a test feature, what would be that one feature that you can't live without?
I think the A/B testing, because Customer IO figures out the CTVO for me, and so I don't have to do math, which is really great. And it's just really nice because I can just promote it, and it has that data in the background still without me having to panic and copy everything, because that's what I was doing at first before I realized I could just export it. So yeah, A/B testing.
Yeah, again, that was a great part of this conversation when talking about testing. Just yeah, I think every good marketer knows, like, when in doubt, test it out and see what works. So
yes, I like, it's a great way to settle arguments, honestly. Like it's like, oh, which color is better? I'll try to find that out for you guys. And then sometimes I'm like, sorry, I don't know. No one decided for you. So
and I'm thinking about moments where done something in design, it looks all pretty, and then I'm confident that's got to be the one that's going to do the best because it's so pretty. And then you're talking about the plain text emails performing better in some locations.
Yes,
I would be somebody who would need that A/B test to say, no, look, the pretty one doesn't always work the best. But good to know.
Luckily, like, people do have like a very open mind about that, and I think they understand the technical background. But I do still involve my design team because I do have like our logo in there, and they can get the spacing right because it's not exactly from Gmail. So I have to like make sure the font looks good and like everything. So
still some behind the scenes.
Yes, still some behind the scenes.
Cool. Well, I don't see any more questions coming in. But Jesse, thanks so much for the conversation. I think it was really cool to go through it in kind of a chronological life cycle order. And to get your thoughts at each stage of that. And like I said earlier, appreciate you letting us throw some stuff at you on the fly as far as life cycle scenarios. And yeah, thanks for coming on as a guest.
Yeah, thank you. It's really fun.